My name is Rhonda Jacob, and I want to welcome you to a very special Musicians at Google event. Today, Wynton Marsalis, Jeffery Ward, and our very own Jim Lecinski will be discussing Wynton's new book entitled Moving to a Higher Ground, How Jazz Can Change Your Life. Wynton Marsalis is an acclaimed musician, bandleader, composer, educator, and author. He was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, and received his first trumpet from renowned jazz musician Al Hirt at the age of 6. To date, Mr. Marsalis has won 9 Grammy Awards in both the jazz and classical categories, and is the only artist to have won Grammy Awards in 5 consecutive years, from 83 to 87. In 87, Marsalis' oratorio on slavery and freedom, Blood on the Fields, became the first and only jazz composition to win the Pulitzer Prize in music. Today, Wynton Marsalis is the artistic director of jazz at Lincoln Center, as well as the music director of their orchestra. Jeffery Ward is an historian, author, editor, and screenwriter. He has written 13 books, including Jazz, A History of America's Music, and A First-Class Temperament, which won the 1989 National Critics Circle Award. Jim Lecinski is Google's managing director of the Central Region, leading the advertising business with major clients and agency partners. He is also a sax and clarinet player, a jazz blogger, and a vintage music collector. Now, without further ado, please welcome Wynton Marsalis, Jeffery Ward, and Jim Lecinski.
All right. Well, thank you, Rhonda. Thanks to all of you who took some time out from your Friday afternoon. We're going to have some fun this afternoon on a beautiful Friday afternoon here in New York. We do have, I know, many of our other offices watching via video conference, so shout out to those other offices, including my peeps in Chicago. So hi, everybody watching us virtually. Welcome, gentlemen. It's a thrill for us to be here. Welcome to Google.
All right. Thank you. Thrill.
So we'll jump in a minute, but just in terms of a game plan for the audience, I think what we'll do is maybe lay out the basic theme or thesis that you guys put forward in the book, so folks sort of get a sense for, what's the main message, and then maybe I think we can go through and unpack, how you come to that main message and what some of the component parts are. Does that sound like a plan?
Great.
That sounds like a good plan. Okay, good. Well, so, in terms of the basic theme or basic message of the book, Wynton, how would you describe the main concept?
The main concept is that we have created an art form that is able to help us in many ways. And we don't utilize it many times just because we don't know. We don't know it's there, and we don't know what it can be used for.
Jeff,
I think it's the best kept secret in America.
Jazz is.
Yeah, I mean, we created this thing. It is an unbelievable art form, and an astonishing number of people have never heard it and don't understand it, and it seems criminal to me.
Right. And so you guys in the book put forth the concept that by taking some time to understand that, it has the power to both transform, I guess, any individual's life as well as groups.
Individuals, groups, and the book, the idea for the book really came from Jeff. I go to his house almost every day in New York for years, and he gets tired of talking to me. So his wife, Diane...
Very little talking, actually.
Diane talks most of the time. No, we entertain Diane, really. And she said, well, instead of y'all always talking about this material, it would be interesting for people to just hear some of the things that I'm hearing here, because Jeff comes at the music from a layman's perspective, and I come at it from the perspective of a musician. So we've tried to combine those two concepts.
So while we're on that topic, talk a little about then, what was the creative process? I mean, was this a one all-night session at a coffee shop that ended up by dawn with a finished book, or how did you get to this product?
It was many, many years of talking, and my wife doing endless transcripts of what we said, and then winnowing that down and editing it and getting the redundancies out and trying to get the best version of the same thing we'd said 30 times. And it was great fun to do. But it's Wynton's voice. I mean, it's not a collaborative in that sense. It's his ideas about jazz. But I had a great deal of fun trying to turn it into a book.
Great. And sometimes we would make these tapes. Sometimes we'd be a little more festive than at other times. So
it's true.
Because we would think we were getting to something, and Diane would come back and say, boy, y'all need to start drinking water or something. This material is not usable. But But the book comes from a mutual love of jazz and a love of each other. It's a communal spirit. I mean, it's kind of awkward. We're sitting up here. We don't know everybody, so we're getting our equilibrium straight. But everything we did was very natural. And, it's something that if you were sitting in our homes or something, it would be kind of normal conversations that you normally have. I mean, conversations you normally have.
And I think having read the book over the weekend, I think that definitely comes through. That sort of conversational style. The reader, I think, is very much feels like you're invited to this discussion as opposed to sort of maybe one-way talked at.
Right.
Good. I'm glad that came through.
Yeah. Well, so let's sort of get to the point that you made that it's the best kept secret. I wrote down a couple of quotes that I wanted to be sure to share with our folks today, and one of the things that I know that you talked about in the book is that is jazz even relevant, right? Does it play a role? Is there a role for it these days today? I mean, clearly the answer is a resounding yes, but maybe you could elaborate a little further on what is that role?
No, you go.
After you.
First, it's a phenomenal tool of education. It's great for education on any level. Let's just start with elementary school kids. That you have a music that prizes your individuality. And in elementary school, if your head is different from somebody's, your nose is different, if you talk differently, if you walk a certain way, everybody wants to tease you. And sometimes in families, you run into the problem of someone saying, "You're just like my cousin Charles," or "You remind me of my uncle, this one and that one." That's such a waste of time because each of us is so creative and original in our own way. And jazz is the type of music that allows you to find that creativity and focus it. Even if you're listening, it doesn't have to be playing. If you listen, you will hear people who have developed things with very limited technique, some who have tremendous virtuosity, some who have just one emotion they want to give you, some have many things they can't stop. Talking like somebody like John Coltrane is valuable. He's just all the time playing something. A person like Thelonious Monk is much more spare, or Lester Young is very lyrical and soft-spoken. Coleman Hawkins is gruff, and Billie Holiday speaks with a certain type of insight and tenderness. So we could go through so many artists, and we would find an unprecedented range of personality expressed in music.
Can I just say one thing? I think the other thing that makes it relevant is how incredibly American it is. I'm a historian, and it includes in it everybody who ever came here. And all the music of all those people is included in it. And all the music we all know is in it. And that's the thing that drives me nuts that people don't understand. How rich and full it is, and what a rich, richly textured, complicated picture of the United States, both who we have been and who we are and who we're going to be.
Now, you guys make the point, though, in the book that there's a common, long-standing misperception that the only real art or serious culture has to be European.
Right, it's kind of a thing that in order for you to be an artist, you can't smile, or you can't joke around, or you got to look like Beethoven all the time. And the one picture they had, not a picture, but one painting of him where he's looks like somebody stole something from him. And it's just not. So there's a concept of highbrow and lowbrow. So if you want to comment on taste in arts, then you have to be an elitist. Or if something is good or quality, it has to have like a ski or something at the end of your name. You can't be Willard Brown. If your name's Willard Brown, you couldn't possibly have an artistic sensibility. But the truth is that there are so many artists and people with artistic sensibilities who preside over our lives in all kinds of arenas. And jazz recognizes that. It's down home. It's sophisticated, but it's down home too. And it celebrates a naturalness.
So let's talk a little bit then about some of those sort of underlying jazz principles. I mean, I think you make an excellent point in the book that for the newcomer to jazz, the non-player, the non-aficionado, jazz can be a little challenging because there's no sort of hints or guideposts like in other arts or even other sports, right? So, if you tried to watch football and didn't understand the basic concept, it just looked like 22 guys running around. Right?
For a short time. And then they stop for a long time.
Right.
I have enough friends that are not American, and that's what they always say when they look at it.
Right. And I know you're a football fan, so I want to come back and get some NFL predictions on your team later. So we'll come back to that. So what what are some of those key things? I mean, Thang, you mentioned Lester Young, right? So this is how does he say it's a cats with axes at gigs trading fours, right? And to the layman, that's like, what, huh?
Right. Well, we included in the book a chapter of just terminology. Sometimes if you just know the terminology of something, it brings you closer to what it is. If you're looking at a sporting event, you know what off tackle is. Then you go, okay, what is off tackle? I see what that is. Or you know what a safety blitz is. You can follow a blitz. Or you know what a nickel defense is. You learn these terms, and then you're looking for, hey, is that a nickel defense? Yes, a nickel defense. And in jazz, we have terms like riff, break, call and response, chorus format, shout chorus, jam session, 4s, 8s.
Just say, working on this book, I've been a jazz fan since I was 9, and I'm fascinated by it. I listen to it all the time. Working on this book and trying to get it to be accessible to everybody, I learned a lot. And I'm still very ignorant about music itself, but I do think that this book has a lot that's just very useful, just to very gently ease you into listening. And you hear more. I hear 10 times as much as I did before we started talking. Mm-hmm. We met when I was doing Ken Burns' jazz series. And I thought I knew a lot then. Then I met Wynton.
So maybe we could share some of those principles. I mean, I guess you spent a lot about swing and blues. Maybe would be the kind of the two, or the 16-bar format. Or
yeah, we could start with the blues. You know, the blues is the root of all forms of American music. It's the root of gospel. It's the root of country. It's the root of R&B. It is the root of rock and roll and everything else. Some things that I don't even know the name of. Appalachian music, Anglo-American folk music has the blues in it. All Afro-American music has blues. And the blues is a 12-bar form, like the 12 months of the year. And the blues has 3 chords, which are the first 3 intervals that Pythagoras discovered a long time ago, 1, 4, and 5. We call it in music. The blues is a pentatonic scale of Eastern music. You can play a pentatonic scale on any blues and it's going to sound good. So just in that, those 2, 3, or 4 basic concepts I laid out. We have the Greeks, we got the Chinese, we got Western music, uses 1 form, and the shuffle rhythm, which is the basic rhythm of the blues, is an interpretation of the African 6/8 rhythm. Now, it's not really that abstract. The way I'm talking about it, if you don't know what these things are, it can sound very complicated. But if I start singing it or playing it, you'll be like, oh, okay, I know what that is.
Could you do that?
Yeah, I could do it. Okay. First, I'm going to start with the Greeks. Okay, 1, 4, and 5. You've heard that a lot of times. Those are the only chords in the blues. Let's say an amen cadence in church. You've heard that. Excuse my singing. Amen, right? So now we'll make a blues out of that. Or 1. Okay, pentatonic scale. Blues, huh? Pentatonic scale. The African 6/8 rhythm. I'm gonna have to get y'all to clap that out. No, it's not. Wait, I'm gonna clap it out. No, I want you to clap out a rhythm. I want you to clap out this rhythm. Just listen to it for a second, okay? It goes like this. Try that. Stick with it. A 1, 2, 3, A 1, 2, 3, A 1, 2, 3, A 1, 2, 3. Keep doing it. Okay, now I'm gonna show y'all how it's related. Okay, we take that rhythm, Okay, and if you all clap this, underneath that rhythm, in African music, many times they're playing in 2 times at once. So they're playing in a 3 time, which is what this is. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. I don't have the coordination to do it, but you know what I'm saying. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now underneath that rhythm, tap the 6 for me. Oh boy. All right, there's a 4 rhythm that sounds like this. Okay, who has a good 6/8? Okay, wait. Okay, I'm gonna give you an easy rhythm. Tap. Okay, I'm gonna show you. This is how we do this. Okay, I want you to tap this 4 rhythm out. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, all right, just hold the 4. Okay. Now this is the 6 on top of the 4. You can hear, right? I'm trying to work with you, okay?
This is in the book. It's a negotiation, right?
Yeah, I'm negotiating.
Right.
I'm trying to go with you. Okay, now from that African 6/8 comes the basic rhythm of the blues. Okay, against the 4, 3, 4, a ding, 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 ticking, tinky, ticky, 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 ding, ticky. Boom, 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 rock and roll. Boom, 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 boom. Hear that? Okay, it can be kind of hard at first, but you see how? Okay, you start with the 6/8, the African rhythm, and it transforms into what we call the shuffle rhythm, which is just 1, 2. So we teach it in the book with, now it's time to say goodbye to all our company. MICKEYMOUSE, Mickey Mouse. Okay, that shuffle rhythm is the basic rhythm of jazz, and it comes from the African 6/8. So now we have in just the blues, we're just talking about the music, the 6/8. Now in terms of the words of the blues, it tells a story, and it leaves more room for responding than for talking. So that's another tenet of jazz. What other people have to say is equally and more important than what the person who's soloing has to say. So the blues, I went down to the station, put my head on the railroad track. Went down to the station, put my head on the railroad track. Somebody plays. When that train come along, I snatch my fool head back. Top. Okay, so you see, and most of the times with the blues, it's always something like that. Something bad is going to happen, but guess what? I'm not going to commit suicide because this is the blues. I got to be back here to sing it again.
That's the thing about the blues. It can be the saddest music and the happiest music in the same tune. And I don't know any other music of which that's true.
Right.
So we had some blues playing as folks were filing in today. You list about a dozen or so jazz greats, some focusing on the blues, some not in the book. What might be, just in your opinion, a couple of 2, 3, 4 starters for folks to go out and either put on the iPod or buy from Barnes & Noble when they're buying your book too?
I think John Coltrane.
Yeah. I was going to say, in addition to Wynton's work, which is available nearby.
Oh, well, not. I never even think of mine when we talk about that, to be honest with you. But I think that John Coltrane plays the blues as one. Yeah. Marcus Roberts, Blues for the New Millennium. That's a contemporary artist of great blues.
And talk about Marcus Roberts, obviously close associate of yours.
Phenomenal. We call him the genius of the modern piano. Unbelievable pianist from Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. Teaches now Florida State, just genius. And Miles Davis's Kind of Blue is the all-time classic. It's not all blueses, but it's Freddie Freeloader's a blues on that record, and all blues, so it's 2 blueses.
And one of the all-time, I guess, jazz best-selling records to this day, right?
Yeah, it's a great record. It's very easy to hear with phenomenal soloists. You can hear different personalities of people on the album, and it's very clearly recorded, so it's a good record. Duke Ellington, who's the ultimate king of the blues, he wrote so many blueses. I don't even know where the Blues in Orbit.
Jam Blues.
Blues in Orbit is a good CD to get. Blues in Orbit. Download.
Great. Okay, so I mean, with some of those fundamentals now that we've sort of talked through, I mean, you saw us doing a little negotiating.
Right,
You
I was
more than
working
me.
with you. I was trying to work with
you. You were trying to work back and forth. So, what does that mean for us in life, right? I mean, some of these lessons, we can listen to the blues. We can. Some of us play it not well, certainly, not at a world-class level. But how can it apply to any of these individuals here with us today, our lives?
To me, it represents American life. And there's something, if you want to feel good about the country, listen to some jazz. That's for me. That's the thing that gets me most. Plus, there's just such an emotional power in it. I've told this story before, but I'm a testament to the healing power of this music. I was 9 years old. I got polio, and I was put in the hospital. And it was when I was 9, American music was at its absolute, one of its bottoms that it's reached. And it was just god-awful. It was Patti Page music, and it couldn't have been more ghastly. And I was very unhappy. And I heard Louis Armstrong play. He played West End Blues, which alone is worth having, even if you don't listen to another jazz record, I think. It is the saddest record and the happiest record. It's just got everything. It's Beethoven, right? And that really, it did in fact change personally my life. That music has meant that much to me. My whole mood changed. I decided I was going to get better because I heard Louis Armstrong. That's real healing power in some, and I think that's true in anything he ever played. So I would not want to leave him out of the things you should.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, almost embarrassingly, we've gone a half an hour here and not brought up Armstrong.
Well, it's a lot of great. I mean, pops is the foundation of everything. Everybody said it, from Frank Sinatra to whoever, George Gershwin. Every musician knew when they were in his presence, they're in the presence of a king. So all of us who play music, we understand kind of thing. It's a professional. All professions have this, where you just have an understanding of the depth of of other practitioners of your craft. But the thing about the music of Louis Armstrong, Coleman Hawkins, the people we're talking about, is many times the music that we listen to requires our emotion for it. Do you remember this one, baby? That's when we went to our prom. Or, boy, this one reminded me when I was 13. Oh, this was the summer when I worked at so-and-so. The songs evoke something very personal for us. It's like a soundtrack to our lives. This music is not like that. It's not. The first time I listened to Giant Steps, I was 12 years old. And that's when I got turned on to jazz. John Coltrane's album called Giant Steps. That's when I started to listen to the music. My father's a jazz musician, so I grew up always hearing it, but I didn't like it. So it's always so noisy, and a lot of people playing for a long time. It wasn't like the 3-minute songs that I liked. But when I put Train on that summer, for some reason, John Coltrane. But to this day, when I listen to Giant Steps, I never think about that summer. I only think about what Train is playing. So the music is always now. And it brings something to you in terms of the emotion and the depth of it. Now, in terms of the historic, when you know the history of the music, you learn about our country and how people got along and what they did. And it's counter to what we think our mythology is. You see people actually getting together. You see in jazz, you can't discuss jazz without discussing racism in our country and things that have real meaning and value. But instead of discussing them along cliched lines, it forces you to come to grips with figures like Benny Goodman. Come to grips with what it is that he did. He and Lionel Hampton and Teddy they were integrated long before baseball. Musicians were playing, Louis Armstrong was playing with musicians of all races in the early part of the 20th century.
Cootie Williams in Benny Goodman's band.
Cootie Williams played with Benny, but we could go on and on, even examples that are not documented. Benny Goodman hired Fletcher Henderson to write arrangements for him. So it goes on and on in terms of the history of our country and what musicians had to say and what they did and what they played. And that's just things that can help us come to grips with our Americanness. And also jazz accepts people. It's not a thing that says you have to be a certain thing. We don't really care where you come from. If you can play, we accept you. Django Reinhardt came from Europe, he could play. Everybody was like, oh, yeah, he plays better than you. Where's that boy from again? Europe. Oh my God. Okay, it's just how that is. And we have all kinds of listeners. All kinds of listeners. We don't put. It can be somebody from a person who is homeless, a street person is welcome in the world of jazz. to the whatever it is, that's the opposite of that. That's just how we are. That is the jazz culture.
And that's a lesson that can be applied then to any group, right?
It has been applied to any type of group. That's what people loved about the music when they encountered it, and that's what they love about it when they encounter it.
I think one of my favorite lines that you guys had in the book is something like, "Jazz adds the sticky sweet to the dry facts of history." Is that
We put a lot of little stuff like that in there.
Yeah.
He'd have to cut out a lot of it. He's like, wait a second, you can't say this, man. So I'm always trying to get to that. That's always on my mind. You got to.
Yeah.
That's what the world.
I want to
is.
make sure we've got some time for our audience, but I want to ask you maybe a couple of just quick speed round questions. What's it like collaborating with Willie Nelson?
It's good. He's cool. It's just solid.
It seems to maybe an outsider like that's an odd pairing.
That's just because they're thinking about marketing. Somebody put a suit on. If I came up with some cowboy boots and a hat on, you wouldn't think it was strange if you knew me to be like that. But we eat the same food. We're from the South. Of course, Louisiana people taught Texas people about cooking and stuff like that. They don't understand that. They have barbecue. We'll give them that. But they was using catfish as bait, and we were like, wait a second. You can fry this, And it's not, it seems odd, but it's not.
You've got a great vocal chorus on Bucket's Got a Hole in It on there. I wonder if you might just sort of illustrate what that's like for our audience here today.
Man, I don't even remember it. Jeff and them were teasing me because I have some shoes on that were silver, and they called them light bulb shoes. So
Okay, you managed to get that line on that, immortalized on that album.
got the line in there. I made up something about light bulb shoes. I don't know.
Great. You do make a couple of points in the book that I wanted to talk about, seeing as how we're here together at Google, a technology company. You have some comments in the book about technology that, I don't know, maybe as I read it, maybe we're not wholly positive about the role of technology in the world today. How do you think about technology?
Well, I think that technology is something that changes, and it's an achievement, human achievement. It's tools, and these are tools that allow us to come closer together, and they do wonderful things. However, I don't feel that we should feel that the fact that our tools become more advanced means that we are more advanced. The technology of the soul has not changed for a long time. So many times we use technological advances to stand in for we are advanced. You see, so our music is not like that. You can come up with all the synthesizers you want. It's not going to be able to swing. Yeah. The drum machine can play every kind of straight eighth note beat. But when you make a computer swing, it might beat Kasparov, but it can't swing. And if you put 3 or 4 of them in a room and say play, it's going to be in trouble. They're not going to be able to play nothing. Because this music it celebrates human beings and our creativity. And the technology is one stellar example of our creativity. So it's not that I'm anti-technology. I think it's fantastic to have more tools that are more advanced, that brings the world closer together and does more of the things that we can't do ourselves. But I feel like we can't lose sight of the primary thing of importance to all of us as human beings, is the development of our humanity and how we can share our humanity with other people.
And I think that was a great lesson for those of us at Google. The line I wrote down, it was a cautionary line from you, is don't be fooled into thinking that sophisticated machines are more important than progressive humanity, which, for those of us who work with sophisticated machines and rack servers and computers and those kinds of things here today, I thought that was really hit home for us at Google.
Well, that's one of his, one thing that's always interesting to me working with him is I love his style of writing because it's lyrical. It's such, I call it a high-ass style. And it's like, it's lyrical. It has a lilt to it. And that type of lyricism is something that's very personal. And it's an indication of who he is as a person, not just the type of scholarship and seriousness that he exhibits, of course, when he's doing his work. But in the personalization of a thing is what jazz musicians love above all else. And that's something that's very difficult to define. Mm-hmm. So I want to say that in working on this book, also to work with Jeff is a great honor to me, just because I'm such a tremendous fan of his style of writing, and knowing him as a person. He's like that as a person. He's lyrical, like he just eloquent, and I've learned a lot from him about just when to be quiet. So That's what I'm going to do.
I'm going to invite our audience to step up to the mics for those of you who have questions while I ask maybe my one final question to you. Obviously, New Orleans is in your blood. It's in your genes. You grew up in Kenner, moved into New Orleans when you were 14, 15, 16. 13, 12.
12.
How's New Orleans doing? I mean, it was obviously on everybody's mind this past week with some of the weather events down there. How are things there?
I'm not there every day. It's I mean, from what I hear, some people not good, some people very good. It's like anything. It's, that's a great chapter in our history and also a sad chapter. But I don't want the story of Katrina to only be sad, because the people of this nation opened their hearts and their resources and everything to the people of New Orleans in a way that was completely unprecedented. And I think that's the lasting legacy of Hurricane Katrina. That's what I take away from it. And they continue to do that. People continue to go down and work on houses and give money and donate things. So yeah, we have a long way to go, but we've come a long way.
Okay, we would like to invite our audience. So anyone who has questions, please step up to either of these two mics. Go ahead.
I'm in awe of both of your accomplishments, and it's like the body of work you've already achieved. What's next?
I'm doing a series of films with Ken Burns on the history of Prohibition. And I was saying to somebody how thrilled I was actually with Google Book Search, because I'm looking for 19th century material. And if you want temperance sermons from the 1820s, which I did 2 months ago, I can sit in my office and go bonk, and there's Lyman Beecher telling me not to drink. I didn't take the advice, but I certainly stole the quote. And then we're going to do a show on, I'm going to do a book about the partition of India where I was raised, and Ken and I are eventually going to do a series on both Theodore and Franklin Roosevelt. Nobody's ever done all the Roosevelts together, and we do long shows, so we're ready to do that. And you have something coming up, I think.
I'm just playing concerts. We open our season, right? I'm writing a piece now for Detroit Symphony and the Michigan State Orchestra. We're going to do that in 2 weeks. Still not finished, but we'll be there September 24th, I think, playing it. And I have another album that's going to come out. It's called She and He. It's based on a poem, kind of love poem about a man and a woman, and the man is kind of stupid and doesn't get it, and the woman is saying, well, this and that. I like to always write those kind of pieces on Blood on the Fields. A piece that I wrote, the lady knows what's happening, and the man is kind of,
I think in the book, wasn't it?
To quote Jeff's wife, once she told us, Diane, very bluntly, men are stupid. And she said it so matter of fact that we accepted it for a second. Like, hey.
We saw the truth in it.
Like, we were going on what we were saying. Wait a second. She said we're stupid.
I think in the book, it was Duke Ellington who you were quoting or paraphrasing that relationship between a man and woman is, what did he say, the world's oldest duet?
World's greatest duet. So I'm always fascinated with that.
Other questions?
I think I know the answer to this. First of all, my husband and I are watching the jazz documentary right now, so thanks to Ken Burns for bringing you two together, because it's really tremendous. We're only at Charlie Parker, but we're getting there. Do you think, with everything that's happened in New Orleans, if it had happened in any other city, would they have survived? Because it would seem obvious, based on your book, that maybe jazz is what's helping that city survive.
I think people survive tragedies. If you go to Hiroshima, I remember the first time I went to Hiroshima. That city is very different from other cities in Japan. First, the spirit of the people is very different. The people are very kind and generous, and they have a lot of bands. This sounds kind of crazy, but they have so many bands in Hiroshima. And people, when I got there, everybody was saying, "Oh, you got to go hear this band. You have to hear this band. We have so many high school bands. We have this. We have that." I think human beings, we survive. That's what we're made of. We endure all kinds of hardships. And I know in the war documentary that Ken and Jeff did, I mean, just the stories of people and what they endure. And one of the guys observed, you do these things because everybody does it, and that's what you do. So yeah, I think any city, people will survive and they will endure, and they'll endure with style. That's what we do.
Dick?
How you doing?
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for coming.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to applaud all the work you've done in terms of promoting jazz and making the art form rise a bit. I think I saw you when you were a teenager, and I was slightly older than you, at the Jazz Summit, about It was a trumpet playoff, some Lower East Side joint. And it was very avant-garde. There were Malachi Thompson, Lester Bowie.
That's right.
And you seem to have moved more in the traditional vein. What are you doing to help promote the avant-gardist, that music that's a bit more challenging for most folks?
Well, my personal feeling about a lot of what is called avant-garde is it's not really avant-garde. I played it. You saw me playing with them. So I find that music, a lot of that is a phenomenal tool for teaching very small kids because you don't have the restriction of form. And I feel like one of the things that keeps us from enjoying music is the second we sit down to play it, we're given a lot of rules. And we should teach music in the same way that we deal with babies when they're learning how to speak. The baby starts babbling, you don't say no, A, Z, and. You just go, yeah. You start babbling and stuff too. So the thought that free improvisation somehow is more challenging than music with forms and rhythms, that's completely misguided thought. It's not more challenging. It invites more people in to play it, and it's a phenomenal tool to learn improvisation. Now, there's a big difference between improvisation and jazz improvisation. Right. Improvisation exists in all music worldwide, and it's a wonderful tool of education. Jazz improvisation, however, is more specific. Another thing about the avant-garde that Phil Schaap, who's one of the world's great New Yorkers and knowledgeable men of jazz, says
he can talk.
He said he can talk, but he knows a lot. Mm-hmm. So he says that for something to be avant-garde, it has to become garde. So if the avant-garde in 1911, let's say in Germany, Schoenberg was avant-garde, when is it going to be garde? So that's kind of what I think. I believe in using all the tools that we have for education, but I'm more into jazz, swinging, the blues, things that address our music. However, when I'm writing music, I would use anything from the history of any kind of music to that service. It might be free improvisation, which I don't necessarily equate with jazz, or things that are more jazz-oriented.
And you also make the point in the book about the difference between folks like Ornette Coleman, who really have the technique, have the chops, know what they're doing, versus, and you don't use this word, my phrase, some maybe pretenders who think it's just play whatever you want.
Well, I don't think that they necessarily are pretending. Maybe I call them pretenders, but I'm just doing that for fun. I don't think they're pretending. I mean, improvisation is an open world for all of us, and it can be fun. I love to hear people just get in the room and play their instruments, and people play, and it's so the avant-garde is such a broad term. It encompasses so many people. I never really know what they're talking about when they say avant-garde. Generally, it means not swinging. Okay, and I mean generally the meaning of it. If somebody says it's avant-garde, it generally means there won't be something swinging. However, it could be swinging. You don't know what it means, and I think that the world of creativity is open to everybody. But in order for you to ascend and to become better at a thing, you have to know what it is that you're trying to become better at. And the problem sometimes with the definitions of jazz is when you have no definition of a thing, it is actually impossible to teach it. What are we learning? I don't know, but we're learning it. Well, why should I learn up here? I don't know why you're learning this blues. It might not be a blues. I don't know what it's called. I don't want to limit you to a definition, but it's something. You have trouble. And if, in fact, a point we make in the book is that if jazz has no definition, it's the only music in the world that's like that. Right. Get me on this, man.
First off, thank you so much, both of you, for coming. This has been amazing. So 2 questions. My first is, if you could play with anyone, whether it be a musician or a band, alive or dead, who would it be and why? And the second question is, I'd love to hear, I love jazz at Lincoln Center. I think it's, such a great institution. I'd love to hear you talk about it and what's coming up and the different facilities there, because I think everyone should know and just have an opportunity to enjoy it.
Okay, first, if I could play with anybody, I would play in Count Basie's band of the mid to late 1930s. First, Sweet Edison has told me what it was like for them from a social standpoint. So that would be interesting. And then just the communal feeling. I had the opportunity to play with some of them at the Village Gate in 1986 or 87. They were very old men by that time. And I haven't played in big bands that much because I'm from kind of the modern era. We look down on big bands, like, oh, man, big band, you can't solo a lot. When I sat down in the trumpet section with them, they were telling me, set the riff. And in New Orleans music, we set riffs all the time. We're playing parades, and the riff is just a little phrase like diddly-dee-doo-dip, ba-doo-ba-diddly-dee-doo-doo, diddly-dee-doo-dip, ba-doo-ba-diddly-dee-da. And everybody in the band starts to play that riff and harmonize it. And that's how the big band kind of moves the music. So I started to set the riffs, and they were like, damn, you are from New Orleans. And I think that Sweet Edison told me one time that they would play in Kansas City, and somebody would find a riff, and it would be so good. He remembered a night where they played that same riff from 1 o'clock in the morning till 5. And he said the people just couldn't stop dancing that same tune, and they would just do-do-do-dee-do, do-do-dee. He said, "It's the damnedest thing you ever heard, baby boy." He used to call me baby boy. It's the damnedest thing you ever heard, baby boy. And they were the type of people who had a great community feeling to them, and they were masters of the blues. Sweet Edison once told me a story of coming home in front of a whole room full of people. I mean, it was like 8 of us in the room. Told us a story of coming home in the late 30s and catching his wife in the bed with another man. And it was the saddest and the funniest thing we ever heard in our lives. So somebody with that type of attitude, I want to be around them as much as possible. So that's where I would like to be. And in terms of jazz at Lincoln Center, we are dedicated to bringing people together through swing. We have education programs. We have over 22 education programs for, we say, kids of all ages, from Weebop, which is for very little kids, to Jazz 101, taught by the maestro Phil Schaap. We have a radio show. We built the first ever halls designed for jazz in Columbus Circle. We have 3 rooms: the Rose Theater, the Allen Room, and Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola, which is, Dizzy's is an informal club that's open all year round. The Allen Room is like Greek theater meets Japanese form and function architecture, wood, looking out on Central Park, and the moon comes into the window, and you're happy to be there, and you will be happy when you get home after the concert. And the Rose Theater is like an Italian opera house in the round with all the people close to us. We just put our new floor in this summer, so we're excited to kind of hear. It's going to even have a warmer sound. We're striving always to bring the audience closer to us and to create a warmer sound. And the feeling that we try to evoke all the time is like that feeling I was describing of Count Basie's band, of just a naturalness and an ease. And you come into our space, and we want you to be welcome. We want to bring you into the feeling of what we're dealing with, and we guarantee you first-class musicianship and hospitality. We're always working on our hospitality. We know this is New York City, but that's the direction that we definitely are going in, and everyone is always welcome to come into the house of swing.
Great. Thank you.
I have one final question before we wrap up. You got a prediction on your Oakland Raiders this season?
I think this is going to be a year that the Raiders, we're going to go midway there. We got a good quarterback. I predict we're going to be
Wild card?
No. Not yet. Next year. This year, no. We're going to be frustrated for another year.
Jeff, a final thought from you for our audience. One last thing that they can take away, one idea that you'd like to impress upon everybody.
Oh, goodness. Listen to that music and learn about your country and yourself.
Very good. And you, sir, final thought?
I'm with him.
Well, on behalf of everyone here, everyone watching, and all of Google, thank you, gentlemen, very much.